welcome to the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. Very glad you're able to spend some time with us here as we get you started off on another week. It's a cold start to the work week, is it not? Minus 14 when I got up this morning, minus 25 with the wind chill. It felt a whole lot like January and not like March. But the good news is, and I've had a couple of conversations with people that in the know that suggest that maybe, and we don't want to jinx things, but maybe this might be the last of the really cold days of the winter. Looking at the long-term forecast, looking tonight, about minus 13, so we got another day to deal with. But then tomorrow, back to zero, and then Wednesday, folks, if the forecast holds true, 7 degrees. So I know that many of you will be quite excited about that. There's a segment of the population out there that want winter to last longer. Those that have been out enjoying the frozen lakes and ponds, playing a little shinny or doing some skating and snowshoeing and skiing and all that stuff. But I will suggest that the majority of people listening to us right now are thinking, oh boy, I'm done with winter. Let's just get this over with. Welcome to March, by the way, the Heartbreaker month. We will keep our eye on the forecast, though. That 7 degrees looking pretty good on Wednesday. Well, it was a weekend, was it not? War in Iran began this weekend. We watched the videos. We've watched the explosions. We've watched the fallout. We've watched some of the explanations as to why from the political leaders around the world. Today, we're learning that 3 U.S. jets were shot down this morning or overnight last night at the Kuwaiti border by the Kuwaiti military by mistake. The Minister of War, Secretary of War, is that what we call Pete Hegseth? Anyway, saying that it looked like a friendly fire incident. Several people from the Iranian community here in HRM took to the streets yesterday. They were quite happy to see that there may be a change in leadership in their country, and the Canadian government says there's been no direct Canadian involvement at this point in this latest war to start taking place in the world. Canadians not involved in the buildup nor the operation. Mark Carney, who is in India, saying that the Canadian government supports the U.S. Plan to prevent Iran from developing and gaining access to nuclear weapons. The leader of the opposition, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, put out a statement on the weekend saying that he supports the Iranian people taking over control of their government. So the Canadian leadership has spoken. Doesn't look like there's any real direct Canadian involvement at this point. But these things are always a messy situation, and time will tell, history will tell if these things ever end up accomplishing what they've been designed to do. But we will open up the telephone lines after 11 o'clock today and ask you the question, if you support war in Iran. That'll be part of the open hour today. I hope that you can join the conversation. But it is Monday, and that means it's time now for us to do our weekly sit-down with a pair of regional councillors from City Hall. Very pleased to welcome to the show today Councillor David Hendsbee on the phone. Councillor Hendsbee, how are you?
Okay, sir.
Getting over a cold, so you're not here today.
That's correct. Yeah, trying to nurse it at home.
And in the studio today, who brought us coffee this morning, and it's very much appreciated, and that's Councillor Janet Steele. Councillor Steele, how are you?
Just fine. Good morning, everyone.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Again, that's the telephone number, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. If you have a question for our pair of councillors, here is your opportunity to gain some access and to have your question asked and answered. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We know that the budget process at City Hall is the long budget process at City Hall is coming to a head this week. This is the week where the decisions start to get made, and the week that those tough decisions that all of our councillors that have been on this program have been saying need to be made, start to be made. And I'll start with you because you're in the studio, Councillor Steele. You've heard all the presentations now. You've heard from the business units. You've heard from the public presentations at Council. And now the mayor described it as kind of pushed everything into a parking lot. And now you have to start making decisions on what gets taken away from the parking lot. I guess the opening question for that is, being that this is your real second go-around at the budget, and it by all indications is that it's a pretty tough budget this time around. Going into this week's meetings, do you have some items on your list that you would consider for cuts or for amendments moving forward?
I think in terms of amendments, there's a couple of things on there for service enhancements I'd like to speak to. One around road safety, more crosswalks, more traffic signals, more speed cushions, speed bumps. There's a long list of people on the request for those. There is a service enhancement proposed. I'll take a close look at that. If our staff are able to perhaps advance some of those into 26, 27, I would consider including that. Similarly, we had a big study on our transit. It was called the Core Service Plan. There were some suggestions for improvement for transit. Unfortunately, it's going to be very difficult to bring any of those in this year. There were a few ideas put forward for accelerating the purchase of buses and accelerating the addition of some routes to better serve Bayers Lake for one, and also the Spryfield area where we're currently lacking in service, so lacking some service. So I'll take a close look at enhancing that. We have had to take a look at some of our grants, some other programs that perhaps the recipients could do with 90% rather than 100%. So I'll be taking a close look at those for potential reductions. I'm hearing from lots of residents. Some are more, I would rather have services than tax cuts. I can tolerate tax cuts. And one of the things people are really concerned about is reducing residential sidewalk snow clearing, for example. They think that will affect their ability to get to the bus. One of the other things on the chopping block is reducing clearing of transit stops to 48 hours. That's not something I could support, because transit, as we know, is a big, accessible, reliable, rapid transit is a big contributor to affordability. So it's going to be very difficult. There are some ideas put forward about delaying some projects until a future year. And I think that is often just short-term gain for long-term pain. I don't, as we know, as we've seen with projects like the Forum and other projects that have been delayed for years and years, what happens is these projects automatically become 15 to 20% more expensive.
And it's part of the reason why we're in the situation that we're in now, right? We've been kicking things down.
We have been
the road.
kicking things down the road, like repairs for some of our municipal assets. We haven't been doing the ongoing renovation and repairs that needed to be done. And so now we have a situation where our debt is increasing faster than what is recommended for municipalities. So we have to reduce the debt that we're taking out to fund capital, as well as looking after the maintenance on our assets.
Councillor Hendsbee, what's on your list?
Well, the first thing I want to look at is our vacancy positions and stuff. We budget our plans on full-time equivalent positions. The question is, I think we need to look at our attrition rates. How many anticipated retirements do we have? Could we encourage any early retirements? Are there some positions we can go away with? How many term positions are going to be coming up and not renewed? We have a lot of non-union positions that we can certainly look at. But with the union positions, I'd like to know what the status of our latest negotiations are, what contracts we still got to honor for this upcoming budget year and next year. But I think that we need to look at our staffing issues in regards to what levels should we keep or not keep. And, the essential services like police and fire and transit are key to maintain to have those frontline services. But I think that we have to look at the management side. Can we do any trimming there? The other things I'm concerned about, as Janet has said, is there any projects we can postpone? The question is, which ones can they be without having a detrimental effect to future budgets? We're being asked quite a bit about the Roby Street widening. If you ask me, I think this is a necessary corridor, just like we did with the Bears Road corridor. It took us a number of years to finally acquire the properties and widen that out, and that's working fine. Now we hope to get that up to Yonge Street, but I think the Roby corridor is the spine down the center of the peninsula, and I think it needs to be done.
Councillor Hendsbee, with the provincial budget released last week, has that changed your view on anything, given some of the pushback from some of those communities?
Yes, I'm concerned about some of the cuts the province has done with all its programs across the board, how they impact some of our others. We have our own community grants program, our local community museums program. I'm concerned about our lessening. We proposed some cutbacks on those, but a couple out on top of provincial cuts, it may be a little more problematic now. I'm more concerned about our community grant program where we had tax relief for our community groups and organizations. Right now, they're being, we did a redesign of the program a year or so ago. There's like a minimum tax being charged, and that's something new that a lot of these community groups didn't have to deal with. But I'm more concerned now with the property valuation properties going up, more of an impact on their assessments and stuff. So I don't want to see a cutback on that. I want to make sure that their assessment rates are kind of covered as well. But there's some community groups and organizations we may have to redefine what level of taxation should there be, like all the cooperative housing and stuff. Here we are looking at trying to tax all our residents, and I think the cooperative housing may have to be part of that solution as well.
Councillor Steele, has the provincial budget changed your thoughts on anything?
I'm still trying to understand the impact. I know one of the things they're cutting is transit for junior and high school students. I've heard from some residents they're concerned about that. I think we'll have to take a look at that. The transit passes will still be available for those that require them. Those that require them if they're affiliated with social services. So for youth that absolutely require them, it'll be available. That's one, though, that it will impact Halifax Regional Municipality as well. It'll be interesting to see what the impact will be on transit. Just picking up on something Councillor Hendsbee said, one thing for all of our residents to be aware of is we have a service review underway. We won't have the results in time to make decisions around this year's budget or for the entire year anyway. But we are looking at the cost of service and if there are ways to deliver some of the services that we provide more effectively and efficiently. So I think that review will be really important. The other thing is we are in the process of recruiting a CAO, and I know that whenever most organizations, when they hire their most senior chief executive, they will come in and take a look at our organizational structure and determine if it's the most effective structure and the most efficient structure and the most cost-effective structure for our residents. So I think that's coming up in 26, 27, while our financial staff gave us a warning and said, you're looking at a 10% tax hike this year as well as over the next few years. I think with some of these reviews underway, we are going to be able to trim some costs in the way we do things. And the other important thing is, I know Councillor Hendsbee and I have both spoken about sticking to our traditional municipal role. And so there are some areas, HRM, understandably had to become much more involved in the housing and homelessness file during the pandemic, when the homelessness, or particularly people living rough in our municipal properties, had to be addressed. And HRM HRM had to step up. But now that that problem is lessened, I'm hopeful that we can reduce the resources we're spending in that area. Also, in the food security, food systems side of things, HRM's quite active in that file. Other orders of government have the mandate and responsibility and have funding in place. So I'll be looking to see if there's areas of duplication so that we can step away and perhaps focus more on investing in our core services.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues after the break. Welcome back. Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic day as we roll forward here on a Monday edition of the program. David Hendsbee on the line with us today. Janet Steele, both regional councillors, here to answer your questions. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. We'll go right to the phone lines and we will say hello to Gloria. Gloria, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Dan. How are you? Good morning, councillors.
Good morning.
Good morning,
Dan, I have some suggestions for budget cuts. I won't drone on. I have one question, and then I'll give you my suggestion.
Sure.
My first question is, how many council members serve on committees now that they get paid for?
No council members get paid for committees.
No. They get paid, but it went to the councillor's office.
Well, Gloria, the Bridge Commission is being dissolved as of April.
So you don't
1st.
have any now?
So we don't have any in the Bridge Commission. The two councils who sit there, our term runs out March 31st.
Okay, so the councillors' meals on council night are being paid for by taxpayers. My first suggestion is you bring a lunch or you pay for it yourself. Secondly, no out-of-town travel for staff or council. We have virtual meetings now. You can participate. No need to be traveling. Put a pause on all bicycle lanes until we can support them. Scrap the $673,000 conversion of Slater Street. No raises for non-unionized workers. They have to share the pain along with the taxpayers. No tree planting this year. No weekly garbage pickup this year. We went for years all summer with pickup every 2 weeks. No new phones or computers, which is a big price over there. And the only budgets that should see an increase, fire, police, works, and transit. You should go to every other department and ask them to find savings in their budget. And then, as David said, and I've been saying this for ages, look at early retirement. I retired from the provincial government early. They gave me a couple of extra years on my pension. Maybe you can do that. Early retirement and attrition. I'll leave these thoughts with you. I just want you to put yourself in the position of the senior who's out there who bought a house years ago, struggling to stay there. This increase in taxes could put them out of their homes, or they would look at cutting back on medication or food. So think about that. And the young people who paid exorbitant prices for houses and now are in a bad position where any increase would cripple them. So think about that, councillors, and never mind all this looking at things that we can no longer afford. I trust you will do this, and I say good luck, and thank you very much.
Thanks, Gloria. Appreciate the call. There's lots there. We'll begin with you, Janet Steele.
Okay. Thank you, Gloria. Just to answer your question more completely, we do have councillors on the Police Commission and the Water Commission, and I do believe there's funds from that go to the Council Support Office. But I will tell you, Gloria, and David can attest to this, I always bring my own lunch. Anyway, so I wanted to address that one. In terms of the green bin, keeping the green bins to every 2 weeks, we did reduce that last year. There were a lot of complaints from residents, so we'll have to see what the will of council is on that one. But that reduction has been suggested. The other reduction that's been suggested is not do much green bin collection during the winter. However, when green bins weren't collected in Clayton Park due to storms in February, I heard from many residents they were very disappointed. So want to mention that. The tree planting, interesting thought. I know that in lots of areas of HRM, we cut trees pretty regularly. In my area on Radcliffe Drive for the new school, we cut thousands and thousands of trees. So I'm not all that excited about tree planting when in some parts of the city we try to protect trees, other places we tree plant, and then in Clayton Park West we cut thousands without any concern for the environment. I think you make really good points about out of town travel. That's one of the first things you look at when you're trying to do budget reductions. Cut consultants and cut out-of-town travel. So we need to. I think that's a really important one. And in terms of fire, police, and transit, I'd like to beg to differ with you a bit on that one. I do think there's probably the potential for some cost savings across there. When I look at the sick leave, when I look at the overtime, and I see a lot in those areas, and I'm hopeful that we can manage that more effectively. And the other thing is we have a combined HRP RCMP workforce. I'm hoping to see some cost savings around the integration. I don't believe that we need to have the same types of specialists in the RCMP and HRP. Can we not share some of those resources? We do have a Commissioner of Public Safety, and I know their job is to achieve integration and save some funding. So I do think there's some savings across there. And I'll let Councillor Hendsbee jump in. And thank you always for calling in, Gloria. Your engagement and your great ideas are always appreciated.
Councillor Hendsbee, over to you.
Well, it should also be noted that we don't want to tax anybody out of their homes. We have affordability programs available to residents of any income level, especially with seniors and stuff. They can qualify for affordability payment plans. They can also defer their taxes until a future date, until they either wish to sell a property, whatever the case may be. But we don't intentionally tax anybody out of their homes. There are programs that we try to accommodate the needs of our citizens.
Core services, Councillor Hendsbee, fire, police. Works, are those budgets golden gooses, or are you looking at them?
Well, I think police and fire and transit, we got to have our frontline operators there, the firefighters in the stations and stuff. We can always look at the management side of those departments in regards to is there some trimming of the management we could do, but the frontline staff on the trucks doing the services, or on the police cars doing their surveillances, whatever. I think that's critical. We need to have a frontline support there.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're going to pause and take a break for the news. Councillors on the hot seat continues on the other side. You are listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in a minute. All right, welcome back. Councillors on the hot seat continues. On the phone, Councillor David Hendsbee in the studio. Councillor Janet Steele. Lines, there's a few open. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's say hello to Tim. Tim, how are you?
Morning, Dan. Morning, Councillors. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Councillor Steele, I think I heard you a few minutes ago saying you're waiting on a core report from services. Is that correct?
Yes, we have a core service review, or we have a review of all of our services. The contract just went out. Councillor Hendsbee helped me here maybe a month ago now, and that report, which is a review of all of our services, will be coming back to council later this year, and it's going to give us a better sense of the cost of each service that we deliver, and identify the most effective and efficient way to be involved with these services.
Well, when you're trying to make such a conscientious and informed decision as the budget will be, because it will affect, needless to say, it'll affect many HRM residents, would it not make sense to have that information beforehand so you can make a conscientious and informed decision? Yes,
it would have. Absolutely. Unfortunately, we don't have it. I think the impetus for that came out late last year, and so we're moving forward. We'll have it in time for next year, and we may be able to make some mid-year service adjustments when the report comes back.
Right, and I appreciate that, but the HRM residents, although you won't have it, it'll be, if there are things to change, it'll be the HRM residents that obviously couldn't benefit by having that information beforehand, because it might be, you might have information right now, again, that you can make an informed decision on. And unfortunately, delaying it 6 months or a year down the road just creates additional monies for HRM residents to unfortunately have to spend.
I agree with you. It's similar to the core service report for transit. We didn't get it in time to effectively integrate it into the 26-27 budget. I wish the report had come forward before that, but it didn't. And yes, I agree with you. It's always great to make data-driven decisions. And is your concern that we will be reducing services, or that we're not reducing them quickly enough? Or is your concern, what are you getting at, sir?
My concern is having all the information necessary so that you, as a council member and all council, can make an informed decision. Because without that, I'm not sure what you're including or encompassing in your decisions, but you're leaving out a sizable piece, which is the core services. At the end of the day, you have some serious decisions to make, and you're making them on information that you may not have.
Yes, we are making them on staff reports, analysis, but we will not have the benefit of that external service review. I agree with you on that.
All right. Well, listen, you have yourself a good day. We'll talk to you later on.
Thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Councillor Hendsbee, any thoughts?
Well, it would have been nice if we could have had the reports, like Janice said, in time for this budget review. But the consultant's report has been tendered out. There'll be some engagement, hopefully, during the summertime. And we anticipate that report to come back to council next fall, for the upcoming budget for 27-28.
It raises questions, at least with my listeners, Councillor Hendsbee, when we have staff review staff positions, right? So, you're going into this kind of blind, aren't you?
No. We're looking at what our current service levels are, service standards, we may have to look at adjusting those things. Regards to, snow removal, we try to do everything 12 to 24 hours. Could some of those side things be 24 to 48? We're not sure, but it's also a lot of weather dependent. We're kind of at the will of the weather in regards to what kind of responses we have to try to abide by. So, we had an abnormal snow this year, and hopefully that will have less next year, but we can't never predict or forecast that, but we have to deal with what we do. But I'm hoping that we'll have that review done by the external consultants, maybe looking at different municipal service standards elsewhere in the Maritimes versus across the country. Different jurisdictions have different municipal responsibilities. Like in Ontario, they're responsible for housing, but here in Nova Scotia, we're not. But we got involved, as you said, in regards to being some of the program delivery models that the federal and provincial governments have put down, that we had to participate in some way through the permitting process or grant position or giving breaks on fees and waiving permits and stuff. So those are some of the things we need to reanalyze and see if we have to be in those businesses or not.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's say hello to David. David, how are you?
Great. Good morning. First of all, hats off to you, Councillor Hendsbee, for bringing up what I did in the past about your office administration, if you want to call it that, looking at cuts, looking at early retirement, looking at do you have too many people sitting around a desk. I was very happy to hear you bring that up this morning because I think that's a main point that has to be looked at. I think your administration in all departments needs to be thinned out. The councillor that is in the studio there, in her comments, failed to mention that. And I think that's something very important. I'm also glad to hear you say about costs for fire, police, and emergency services. Yes, not looking at the fire, but the police, integrated RCMP and HP. I think there's one person that could do the job, and you have three people doing it. I don't know if it's the supervisors. I don't know if it's the high ups. I'm not talking the guys on the bikes. I'm not talking the guys on the motorcycles or in the cars. I'm talking about office in this whole conversation. And you fail to look at that, and you really have to look at that. And every time it's brought up, it's about, well, they're unionized or this or that. Well, look at non-unionized. Look at maybe you don't need 4 people with a lawnmower cutting lawns. You need 3, and so on and so forth. That's where you have to look. And when you start looking in that area, what that will give you is money and not be able to cut sidewalk painting, not be able to cut transit plowing of the bus stops like your other council mentioned. That's where you take money from one area, put it to another. And you are failing as a council to do that. For some reason, you guys are scared to go in with a budget knife and start cutting your office staff. Your expenses are unbelievable. Do you need to be driving around in brand new cars every year? Does HRM city bylaw officers need to be driving around in $90,000 sport utility vehicles? You took in a blind eye for some reason, and I don't know why, and I'd like to hear why. And I know, David, it's your last term, and you're probably shaking your head and saying, thank God, because the last 2 budgets, the last 8 years, has been a disaster. And I don't see anybody grabbing their lunch bag and leaving their office because they've been laid off, and that has to happen. And finally, as a grade, I think you failed. You failed drastically. Your transit system is a mess. It's always been a mess. You opened up bike lanes and you've opened up transit lanes and thought that would be better to bring more people into a peninsula where you need less people driving into the peninsula. You've now got a mess where you look at the the bus lanes, and you're thinking, well, let's let the cars go in there with more than one person. You're panicking. You've had a chance to have rapid transfer, but because you got in a pissing match with the government and probably the rail, you can't have that. You burnt bridges, which allowed you to not have any options. You looked at a ferry from Bedford, and where's that? Gone, because you keep pounding your head in the books how to make it work. And then finally, you take the tolls off the bridge with the government.
Well, that was the provincial government that did that, David, to be fair.
Okay, so they take the tolls off the bridge to bring more cars in. I guess my point is, you're a peninsula surrounded by water. You have a harbor, you have the Point Pleasant Park, and you have the Arm. You only have 3 ways to get into that place, and you're trying to get as many people in there as you can. And it's a mess. And by the way, you have the 3rd lousiest traffic in Canada behind Toronto and Vancouver. Congratulations.
Thanks, David. Lots there, and I'll start with you, Councillor Steele. Is Halifax Regional Municipality, when it comes to services, top-heavy?
I think that when we get this service review back later this year, we will have the data to give us some numbers on that. I can tell you that when every business unit comes to present to council, we look at service levels very closely, and we ask questions about any changes in employee count. So I can tell you that this is scrutinized very, very carefully. Having said that, there, we did pass a motion to look at a way to reduce $40 million from the HRM budget for next year. So it'll be interesting to see what the report comes back with. I don't know if it will look at staff or not. I'm hopeful that the service review will look and see if we are doing things the most effectively and efficiently. And I'm not talking about reducing bus drivers. I'm talking, is there scope within the administration of our three largest units, and that would be transit, fire, and police. Is there scope? Are there more efficiencies, as the gentleman said? And yes, I just want to be very clear. Affordability is a big concern for me. We do have some measures for affordability for transit, for recreation, and for payment of municipal property taxes. I do recognize that seniors and young families are struggling out there, and we need to make sure we're offering the services the most effectively as possible.
Councillor Hendsbee, your thoughts? Are we top heavy? Is HRM top heavy?
Well, I want to reply to comments about traffic and stuff. One of the challenges that Halifax and Dartmouth have is our geography. Being on a peninsula, you have limited options to get in and off the peninsula. Right now, we're looking at the McKay Bridge we have to replace in 15 years' time. That 4-lane bridge, we're not looking at a new bridge, probably up to 6 lanes in capacity, plus active transportation on it as well. We got to look at the building infrastructure for the next 100 years when that McKay Bridge is now gone. I've always been an advocate for a South End Bridge because if you look at the traffic flow, you can't go up and down North Street or up and down Robey Street to go out from the south end. Everything has to flow to the north. Everything has to flow out to the north to get in and out of the peninsula. So one of our problems is our geography. And also we're an old city. We are over 250 years old. Some of our street grid network has been like this for centuries and stuff. And we are limited by the amount of lane space we have. Other cities that are much younger than us have the capacity to build wider street capacities if they want to have more light rail transit and subways, whatever the case would be. We're on bedrock, so I think we're not going to see any subways or any tunnels anytime soon in our area. But we have to look at other options. But, in regards to the high occupancy vehicles, I don't agree with them at all. I think our bus lanes should be for buses and emergency vehicles only, and I hope we can stick to that. We need to move those things forward. But in regards to removal of the tolls, that's the provincial decision that was done. But still, we need to get people. I've been an advocate for more park and ride terminals. If you look around at our park and ride terminals, a lot of the parking lots have been full. We need to build better capacities. We need to put parking garages in those park and ride terminals to get more car capacities off the highways and onto our buses. Let's do so. Let's get more park and ride terminals throughout the suburban areas and rural areas of Halifax.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We need to take a break. Councillors on the Hot Seat continues on the other side. All right, Councillors on the Hot Seat continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. In the studio with me, Councillor Janet Steele. On the phone is Councillor David Hendsbee. Again, 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phone lines, and we say hello to Sean. Sean, how are you?
Everybody.
Your question,
All right. Hey, sorry. Listen, I'm not going to pile on you guys. I know your job's hard enough as it is, and actually I respect what you guys do. I have a question, though, about the Halifax Forum and the surrounding land around it. I think we could be open to ideas in how to fund this project. Councillors, do you guys know how much land is the Halifax Forum on? Like, where the Civic Arena and the Multipurpose Center and that empty parking lot, is that part of the Halifax Forum land?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I'm going to say this, I'll probably take some heat for it, but the Civic Arena is pretty much, I don't know, I think it's a dump, personally. Is there a way that we could, as a city, possibly sell that little parcel of land there to a developer, more apartment buildings, and fund that forum repair with the sale of that land?
Well, the problem there is what we want to replace the form with in regards to the civic ice pad and everything else. We want to have at least a 2-pad facility, plus a common recreational space as well, a common community use space, and parking as well. So we had some proposals in the past. Could we do a triple P, a private-public partnership there to see if we could redevelop the site? But the problem was that people want to keep the historical footprint of the forum and stuff and keep it as is or keep it where it lays. But I was one of the few voters at the council about 14 years ago that voted against that. I said the forum has got to go. It has its place in history, but the condition of the building back then has even got worse now. The question is, I think it's going to be a bad investment trying to fix that forum. We have to demolish it and replace it. The question is, how do we replace it? Do we replace it where it is there on a new plan, or can we find other locations that the mayor has been thinking about? Ideally, it would be nice to move Canada Post out of there, put the Albert Street sorting location out in Burnside, and then have that whole block there for redevelopment of another sort for sport and recreation and community and residential and commercial development. But the Canada Post is holding up that goal.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering about way we can raise money, and we know land is very valuable for apartment builders, so I thought that'd be an option to purchase some, get some money, some funds together without raising taxes or keeping people happy. So, all right. Well, thanks, David.
Appreciate that, Sean. Councillor Steele, would you like to comment on the forum?
No, I just agree with everything Councillor Hendsbee said. There is a strong community support for maintaining the forum, maintaining the ice space, maintaining community space in that part of the city. And the issue is, if we were to move it, other than the Canada Post facility, if we were to move it, we would have to purchase land, and we know that would be very expensive. The other thing is Canada Post, I believe even recently has said they have no intention of selling their land.
Which kind of hamstrings the entire idea.
Yes, and it is theirs, yes.
Right. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We are just about out of time. Councillor Hendsbee, what's happening up in your district? David, are you there?
It's pretty quiet this time of year with the March break coming on. Hopefully, the people just going out and enjoy the snow while it's there, enjoy the trails, people out in their skidoos and ATVs enjoying the backwoods. So hopefully people are out there safe.
And Councillor Steele, what's happening in Old District 12?
I am looking forward to the opening of the BLT Community Center. The spring registration is for programming is taking place now, and we're hoping that it will take place at the community center. The other thing that is happening is we now have the Manulife Recreation Center. There's a renaming of the Canada Games Center, what was previously the Canada Games Center, to the Manulife Recreation Center. Manulife has provided $1 million over 10 years. There will be some free community access for the Manulife Recreation Center.
How about some upgrades to the center?
And there will be some upgrades. Some of this funding will go into investments in upgrades and equipment and in the facility. So this is good news for all those people that use the Manulife Recreation Center.
It's going to be the game center for a long time. People have got that stuck in their head. Anyway, Councillor Steele, I appreciate your time. Councillor Hendsbee, much the same. And Councillors on the Hot Seat is here every Monday for us. So I hope that you can join us again next week. We're going to take a break. We're going to open up the telephone lines. It's time for the open hour. There's an awful lot to discuss. Some of the things that you heard here with our councillors may be on your mind, or something else. There's certainly a lot of discussion in the community about this weekend's events in Iran. And I'm asking you the question today. Do you support war in Iran? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the news. Welcome back. It's time for the open hour. The telephone lines are now open. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. That is the number. Regular rules apply, as they always do here in our open forums. You can bring whatever it is to the table. I'm interested in your thoughts and your opinions on the issues of the day, but I am also very interested to see what your support level is for the now ongoing conflict. Can't even call it a conflict. It's essentially all-out war right now in Iran. Do you support the American and Israeli war in Iran? 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Leadership here in Canada has reacted in the hours after this came to light on the weekend, after the President of the United States sent out a video, and then we started to see some of the pictures in and out, and boy, it's just, some of those are just terrible images. No matter what side of the equation that you're on, there's certainly been lots of loss of life, and that will continue as we move forward. The Prime Minister said that Canada is not participating militarily and that the federal government was not party to the military buildup or planning. There is some concern. Canadian officers are in constant training rotations with their counterparts in the United States, particularly in places like NORAD and in other operation centers that may have been involved in the planning and or the execution of this. And it's always a gray area if there were actual Canadian fingers on buttons or keyboards or whatever. But to this point, the Prime Minister says that Canada is not participating militarily and the federal government not party to the military buildup or planning. The Prime Minister also says that Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from threatening international peace and security. Pierre Poilievre put out a statement on the weekend as well. It said that the courageous people of Iran, in toppling this terror regime and reclaiming their destiny after 47 years of the regime's occupation. Conservatives support a democratic, free, and permanently denuclearized Iran that lives in peace and security with its neighbors. And conservatives support the United States, Israel, and our allies across the Gulf to defend their sovereignty and dismantle the clerical military dictatorship of Iran. That is a statement from Pierre Poilievre in the hours after we started to learn of this operation in Iran. I mean, as I said at the beginning of the program today, history will write about this, and depending on what side of the equation you're on, that is kind of how we will remember this. I thought it ironic that this all began on the 35th anniversary of the end of the Gulf War, in literally across the Persian Gulf from where that started, right? And now we're back at it again. I wonder if armed conflicts like this accomplish all of their goals, right? The American military and the Secretary of War now, Pete Hegseth, in a briefing today, said that this is not a one-day operation, that this is a major military operation and will take some time to complete. He wouldn't give sort of a timeline nor an exit strategy when asked about that today. And we're plunging that part of the world and back into an armed conflict. And it's already having impacts. I know we may not have Canadian assets involved in the actual battles, but it's certainly going to impact the world's economy. It's certainly going to impact how much it's going to cost you to fill up your tank. There's talk of a 10 cent a liter increase in gasoline here in Canada as early as Wednesday. Now, I haven't got any inside information as how that's going to work in Nova Scotia, but I would imagine that we'll start to see oil prices increase, and then, of course, gasoline prices increase, and then we'll start to see the impacts that this will have on the markets, and the list goes on and on and on. The Iranian people appear to be happy with this decision, with this war. We saw people here in Halifax take to the streets yesterday in celebration of the death of the supreme leader in Iran. Living under an oppressive regime, had many of them leave their country. Some in the articles that I read in the aftermath of the demonstrations yesterday, saying that they're planning to go home now. So I'm interested in your thoughts on it. Do you support war in Iran? 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The other story that emanated this weekend out of the province, at least, was Premier Tim Houston, before jumping on an airplane on Sunday and flying off to Toronto for a couple of days of meetings over mining, I think it is. He's traveling again. Attended a gallery or a gala event dealing with African Nova Scotian history. And when he took the stage, was booed. And it wasn't just a couple of snarky boos that you see quite often when politicians take the stand. It was pretty loud and continued through much of his speech. We know that Premier Tim Houston has enjoyed popularity ratings above 50% since his last election victory. We know that Premier Tim Houston has a supermajority, and when we went to the polls last time, Nova Scotians were quite pleased with his first term, I guess. I wonder if that's changed now that some of these decisions in the Blizzard budget of a week ago today are sullying Blue Nosers' image of our premier. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Len.
Good morning to you, Dan. It's a nice day, but it's cold out.
It is cold, that's for sure.
Dan, I just like to say I agree sometimes with particular conflicts between countries, especially if it affects the lives of innocent people, and that's the thing that I don't like about wars, is that it interferes with a lot of innocent people that have to be sacrificed because of the leader. Now, it would be great if they could just maybe kill off the ones that are bad instead of, having to kill innocent people. I mean, we got a lot of Iranian people here right in Halifax, and I'm sure they're concerned about their families that are still in Iran. And the people of Iran are very, very nice people. And, we should never be angry with the people of Iran, because they have nothing to do with nuclear power and all this stuff. They would rather live in peace. And that's the only thing I have against it, is that innocent people have to get killed, and that's a rotten shame. And that's what I sometimes I don't agree with wars. I sometimes think, why can't they sit down and have negotiations, or take the two leaders and let them fight it out between themselves? Anyway, the other thing is about Tim Houston. I think Tim Houston is doing a great job, myself personally. I think when he makes cuts in certain areas, it's necessary to make cuts in order to have money to maybe use for most important things. And so my opinion is, no, I don't think his popularity is diminished. I think there's nobody else that we would vote for. We certainly wouldn't vote for the Liberal Party in Nova Scotia right now, because they have nothing to offer, or the NDP. Anyway, you have a great day, Dan, and all the best to you.
Thank you, Len. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. When you look at some of the comments that Len made about just going in and killing the bad man, then who gets to make that decision, right? I understand that it was a brutal regime. There's no doubt that the people of Iran have been repressed since what was it, the 80s, and that it was a brutal regime. We saw some of that regime's muscles being flexed when people of Iran took to the streets and they were killing them by the thousands. At least that's the reports. And the case is pretty strong that the world was looking for change there. But if we just give governments of the world the power to just say, well, this is a bad person or a bad leader, and we're just going to go in and kill him, then does that not create the slipperiest of slippery slopes? I mean, we could say the same thing about the operation in Venezuela, right? The world will tell you, and the Venezuelan people will tell you, that Nicolas Maduro was an awful leader. He was a cruel, cruel dictator. And that the Americans going in and snatching him and having him face American justice is well celebrated in Venezuela. Who gets to make those calls? And if somebody steps aside of a power or an allied group of people, then or do you just eliminate them? I'm not suggesting that this, again, as I said earlier, wasn't a brutal regime. There's no doubt it was. And to be quite honest, war never really solves anything. Right? We said that we saw the same thing with Gulf War II. Right? They eliminated Saddam Hussein. They found him in a sewer grate, and then they hung him. And it's taken all these years for that country to recover, if it ever will. I just wonder if this is all worth it. Looking forward to your calls. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We are back after the break. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour continues. A couple of emails before we go to the phones. This one reads, nobody agrees with war. That being said, I agree with eliminating the demonic ayatollahs whose goals are to suicide the entire world with nukes because we reject their ways. Another one, this one from Mark, who reads, the leaders in Iran are flaunting with building their own nuclear weapons, and if that were to happen, the rest of the world would be at risk. I'm afraid that war is the only solution here. As much as I hate war, this is 100% necessary. Also part of the discussion, folks, and I would love to hear your honest opinion on this. For the discussion and the justification of the war is the person who is sitting in the Oval Office this morning, well, I think he's in the Oval Office if he's back from Mar-a-Lago, is the divisiveness of President Trump part of the reason why there's some pushback on this, right? If anybody else is in that seat, and y'all know my feelings on President Trump, but if anybody else is in that seat, would there be as much hand-wringing about this? I think that would be an interesting conversation. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let us welcome James to the show. James, how are you?
Good, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'll just take you off speakerphone. I'm just trying to figure out why. Thankfully, with this large immigration resulting in the government coffers growing, they're all paying taxes. And then a province of 1 million having to, in 1 year, spend more than we take in, 1.2 billion, we'll say. I'm at a loss of words. Can you throw some light on this?
Well, it's interesting. Nova Scotia has added 100,000 more people since 2020 to the rolls, right? So in 5 years, we've seen an increase of 100,000 people who are paying taxes, and we're still at $1.19 billion in deficit. Feels like kind of a little bit of fiscal mismanagement there, no?
Oh, gosh, at the very least, I'd love to have an outside, well, don't we have an attorney general or someone to look at this? And
the auditor general would look at it, yes.
Yes, that would be, I'd pay $500 myself to have that done. Thank you for taking my call, sir.
Appreciate it, James. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. To further James's point, if we've seen immigration of 100,000 in since 2020, according to Stats Canada, we also, at the end of last year, saw that Nova Scotia lost 1,400 people over the same quarter. The first loss, I think, since 2020. So if we're not seeing the immigration or migration or however you want to describe it that we were seeing last year and the year before and the year before that, does that not suggest to you that the revenue stream is starting to cap? And let's not forget that the Premier also lowered HST by a percentage point and eliminated the bridge tolls. So I will suggest, not having a look at the books, but I will suggest that revenues will be down. And we're still in this situation. All of these cuts, folks, just think about it. All of these cuts that everybody is upset about, and rightly so, plus the elimination of 3% of the public service and the broader, or 5% of the public service and 3% more of the broader service, the Crown corporations. And we are still $1.1 billion in deficit. That's a lot of money. Not to mention that deficit gets added to the debt. And you and I are paying $1 billion with a B. $1 billion a year just to pay the interest. Hello, Helen.
Hi there.
Go ahead.
I'm going to turn the radio down, okay?
For sure. Appreciate that.
Yes. Thank you. What I'd like to do is I'd like to speak on our Mayor Fillmore and also the councillors.
Sure.
The big thing that upset me last week when I was listening to the radio, there were 3 councillors, they were all female, and how they spoke of our mayor was unbelievable. If that had been in any other workforce, and they are in a workforce, those councillors, I don't care what anyone says or thinks, because that is the truth. If they had been in any other workforce here in Canada, they would have probably been let go. But since they're with a government level, that's one of the reasons they weren't. But it was very, very, very disrespectful. The other thing I want to say about these councillors is time for them all to get out. It is. They've been there too long. They become complacent. And actually, I'm tired of listening to them. And as far as getting work done, I know for a fact that there's been a group of people that have been trying to get this buy the land in order to put something there. And it's for their church.
What land? Sorry?
Well, it's a piece of land next to a church. I wouldn't say where.
Okay.
And they've been trying to get this piece of land for 3 years. And the reason being they need to build on to have a bathroom. And these councillors just goes from one desk to the other, them or the staff. And that's the other thing I want to speak about. These staff that we have over there, they're doing the work for the councillors. They're digging up all the information on whatever the topic is. They give it to councillors, and councillors vote on it. The other big thing I want to say, we're paying a big sum of money for the councillors and a big sum of money for the mayor. And what is the mayor able to do? Nothing, it appears. The councillors, they vote down everything that man has tried to bring forth. Do you know, I just found out recently that he graduated from Harvard University with a planning degree, with a planning degree. So he has more common sense and more know than these councillors have. I'm telling you, I want to barf, and this is an awful way to put it, but that's how upsetting it is. But when I heard them last week, I thought to myself, I then had to go to a funeral towards the end of the week, and I was there, and I was on this rant with friends of mine about the councillors, because the name came up, councillors. Well, let me tell you, we don't need all these bicycle lanes. I live here in Eastern Passage, and we've been paying taxes down here for 42 years. Before that, we paid them 12 years in Cole Harbour. We do not, I might see a bicycle go by my place, and they come from Cole Harbour, some of them, because it's safer to take the Caldwell Road, and then they come through. I might see a bicycle, even in the summer, maybe two, that I'll see them go by our door, okay? Because I can see from my living room window. We do not need all these bicycle lanes. And we just were to Germany last year, and what they did for the bicycle lanes in Germany, they had a special sidewalk. People knew that they weren't to walk on it, they weren't to drive on it. It was all level with a highway, and it was no problem. Everything ran smoothly. So these councillors don't have a brain. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's no common sense. There's no common sense in any of them.
Thank you, Helen.
Thank you very much.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lots to unpackage there, and we'll try to do so when we come back from the break. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. The very latest on the ongoing war now in Iran. The Iranian Red Crescent Society says more than 550 people have been killed in Iran by the U.S.-Israeli military strikes. It says more than 130 cities across the Middle Eastern country have come under attack. Iran and Lebanese militant group Hezbollah are firing missiles at Israel and Arab states in return. Apparently, they've hit the U.S. Embassy compound in Kuwait. Authorities say about a dozen people have been killed in Israel and more than 30 people now are dead in Lebanon. The U.S. Secretary of War says the fighting is not endless amid widening concerns this could spiral into a protracted regional conflict. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Do you support war in Iran? Let's go to the telephone lines and say hello to Carlos. Carlos, how are you?
Hey, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Good. So, one thing is to differentiate between the Iranian regime and the legality of the action, right? The Iranian regime, sure, you can say that it's a bad one. Absolutely. I think there are very few of us who would support that. But the legality of the action, that's another matter. And there's no question that it's an illegal action. No question, it's violating international law. Also, what's the exit plan? Again, another action by the U.S. without an exit plan. This will likely turn into a Iraq 2.0, which how you not going to be forced to put troops on the ground. So that would be my comment. Surely I'm against the Iranian regime, but the action, no, it's illegal action. And again, no exit plan. That's not good. Anyway, but that's how I see it.
Appreciate it, Carlos.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. It's Carlos raises some interesting points. I think the debate over the legality of this action will be something that will be talked about here for some time. If it is, if it isn't, the president didn't get authorization from Congress, but there have been many actions in recent history where the president hasn't. Now the U.S. Congress, the Democrats are offering to start debate on the war powers of the president of the United States to act alone. That's the political arm of this. And again, I go back to what I said in my comments earlier in the show today, where because of the person whom is sitting in the Oval Office and making these decisions, being as divisive as Donald Trump is, that is creating a lot of discussion about legalities of things moving forward. If this is a less divisive leader, then are we having the same discussion? And again, I will say, you know my feelings on President Trump, but is it because of the person who is there that these discussions are happening. We've seen this several times. In my lifetime, we've seen it several times where the Americans have launched operations in different sovereign nations and countries without the Congress approval or the actual declaration of war. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Lots of discussion today as well from the Premier's appearance at African Nova Scotian event, a gala this past weekend, took to the stage to do a speech and was booed. And it wasn't just a passing boo like you would normally see when a politician. There's always some sarcasm and boos that happen when politicians take to microphones, particularly at events like this. But this was a step above that. This was genuine discontent within the people that were there. And they were relentless. It's very interesting to see the reaction. And I wonder, by extension, if Regional Council is watching this. I've said to you before that a politician's job on day one of being elected and taking office is getting reelected. And if a city councillor that is planning on running again is seeing the reaction to the cuts announced by Premier Houston into different organizations and groups and grants, would that cause said councillor to maybe think twice about any planned cuts that they have as the budget moves forward? Not to mention some of those budget cuts are impacting the municipal budget. It's I don't think the Premier was planning to enjoy pretty good numbers in the polls his entire term. Politicians never do. A week in politics is a long time, and stuff sticks, right? To use words that I can use on the radio. But I don't think that this government was ready for the reaction that they've received for this budget. Phil writes, "Hey, Dan, I remember that between 2009 and 2013, Graham Steele, who was the NDP Minister of Finance, repeatedly told Nova Scotians that the province was barely able to cover the interest payments on its debt. He made it sound as though Nova Scotia was essentially broke, with little to no money available for anything beyond servicing that debt. So I'm wondering what changed. Did we suddenly win the lottery? Why does Tim Houston now appear to have millions available to spend when not that long ago we were told the cupboard was bare?" And that is from Phil. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Rob writes, "The deficit was almost entirely created by the Houston government. He had removed the tolls on the bridges and the roads, taking tens of millions out of the revenue pot. He then lowered tax HST by 1%, and that cost the provincial coffers more. Now he wants to gut the natural resources department, endangering the natural beauty of the province. He also guts the arts and tourism sectors. These two sectors, we need to attract visitors and their money to our province. These are self-inflicted wounds that we will all be paying for in the years ahead." 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Just a very quick programming note for you all. We're going to continue the open hour here to the top of the hour. And then on the other side of it, a conversation with the province's finance minister, the person who delivered the blizzard budget. Finance Minister John Lohr will be joining us after 12 o'clock today. I hope that you can stick around and join us in that conversation. Again, that's going to happen just after 12 o'clock. Back to the phone lines, and we say hello to Dave. Dave, go ahead.
Yes, good morning, Dan. Thank you for taking my call once again. I'd like to talk about the Iranian situation, and that being, I think we should be blessed that Iran does not have the nukes that they were developing, and there's no secret that they were trying to accomplish that mission.
Right.
And they were delaying. I believe that death to America on Hamas, Hezbollah, ISIS, how many of soldiers, Canadian and American, have been maimed from these instruments of war provided by Iran and its financing of these terrible, terrorist, ruthless groups? Let's not forget that. Have we opened up a can of worms? You're damn right we have. But I think we should all be blessed that that country, not all Iranian people, I think the Iranian people are at a situation that they can hopefully move forward and get a leader in there that is not as ruthless. Quite frankly, I'm happy that with the ongoings myself, unfortunately, has war been declared? I don't know. But there is going to be casualties of this, unfortunately. I don't think the U.S. and Israel thought that there would not be. There are going to be American soldiers in body bags, and we're already seeing that coming home.
Yep.
When you sign up, Dan, as a military man, there is risk. Mm-hmm. There is risk just working and training. I have a son right now who is involved. We have a lot of Canadians around the world. We have no idea what they're doing. They're contractors. They are very good soldiers. We don't know what's going on, but they are helping out in certain situations. Let's not kid ourselves. They are special forces. Myself, Dan, like I said, these terrorist groups, you know, they're cutting off the head of the snake. It's going to take time, and hopefully we will live in a better world with the changes that are going on right now. There has been a lot of things left behind, and thank you for saying that Trump is not the only one that has gone without Congress, because once you go through Congress, you have to give away your plans.
Yes.
A lot of his success has been the surprise of the attacks. We knew this was going to be messy. Iran is a massive, heavily armed nation under ruthless dictatorship for years. You could go on each side of the fence, if you will, but sooner or later, folks, you're going to have to take a side. Do we want to protect the Western way of living? It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. And Dan, you were a soldier yourself. There is risk. When you sign up for something like that, you know, you're going to risk your life possibility. I have a son in the military right now. He was in Iraq. You don't think I worried when he was there? Of course. We had many soldiers, men and women, got their parts blown off because of these damn terrorist organizations. I'm okay with it right now. I hope it settles nicely. I don't know if it will, but God bless America, and let's just hope that this doesn't explode into something terrible. And that's my comment for today. Thank you, Dan.
Thanks,
my call,
Dave. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Don't think I would go as far as saying God bless America. That being said, Dave, you are correct when you say that there are risks to every person that signs up and puts on the uniform of whatever country that they belong to. But the question is that are these risks necessary? Right? And the Iranian people will tell you that this is necessary. The American government will tell you that this is necessary. There are many in the Middle East that will tell you that this is necessary. But I think it's just become almost normalized, the gravity that these things are, right? And to your point, Dave, and I understand your point about nukes and that the Iranians developing nukes, we were told not that long ago that the nuclear enrichment program in Iran was completely, what was the word that the president used? Obliterated? Now, that might have been just one facility, but it got sold to us like they did the best job that was possible. And now we're using nuclear weapon development again as a justification. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the break. All right, welcome back. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I think the the outbreak of war, and is it war by definition? I don't know. There's been no declaration. I think that the Iranians have declared open war, but the Americans not necessarily going through the process. But when you start to sell to the American people that you're going to disarm a country and essentially lead to the ouster of its government, means kind of war to me. Anyway, I got an email to pass along from Lucas that says, "Hey, Dan, I must be a week old, as Netanyahu's been saying Iran's a week away from cracking the code on developing nuclear warheads since before I was born. Interesting, it took 40 years, or did it just take until the only idiot who would follow Israel into war got elected?" His words, not mine. "I do not support the current Iranian regime, but I do not support illegal wars and governments that commit genocide. Trump or not, this is illegal." And that comes to us from Lucas. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Just watching during the break, obviously the American networks are eating all of this up, right? And some of the bomb damage and such, and what I find and to me is that we see these bunker busters and these big bombs that are hitting targets, and it's very full of flag waving and pomp and circumstance. But at the end of the day, when you're knocking down city blocks, like I just saw on CNN, there are innocent people that are being killed and maimed because of this. So we shouldn't take these things. We should take these things seriously, even though we are an ocean or two away, and are not likely to impact us here in North America. Now we've heard the stories about sleeper cells and all of the associated things. There was a shooting in Texas this past weekend that officials are now investigating as a terrorist act that may be connected to the American military involvement in Iran. But at the end of the day, I mean, the Prime Minister on the weekend put out a statement saying that police services in Canada don't believe that an attack is imminent here in this country. And it's easy for us to watch these things on TV, right? You get to see the airplanes taking off and the accuracy of the bombs that are hitting these targets. But Pete Hegseth himself said that not everything's fallible, or there are things that are fallible. And he said that there were American lives lost because one of the projectiles fired from Iran evaded American missile defense systems and hit a operations center. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I am well. What's on your mind?
I just wanted to comment on this ongoing disaster, undeclared war on Iran. The U.S. is basically will do anything, whether it's good or bad, for Israel. In 2016, the American Congress passed a budget that from the years 2019 through 2028 for military aid to Israel in the amount of $38 billion. Okay? $38 billion from 2019 through 2028. This is all about Israel and the hold that Israel has over the U.S. And, take that any way you want, but facts are facts. And I just wanted to bring that out. This is not going to end well.
Thomas, I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thanks.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. 1942, June of 1942, at least by my quick search here, was the last time that the United States formally declared war. And that would have been, of course, World War II. There have been many declarations since. But according to the research that I just did during the break, it hasn't happened since World War II. So I go back to what I said earlier. I wonder if then that's the Gulf War, that's Gulf War II, that's Afghanistan. And I get that with after 9/11 that the President of the United States went to Congress and received authorization and so on and so forth. But as for a declared war, it hasn't happened since the Second World War. So it's not likely to happen ever, unless they change the rules. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just a reminder, we're going to take a break here at the top of the hour for the news. And on the other side of it, a conversation with the finance minister for the province of Nova Scotia. Minister Lohr will be here to answer your, not to answer, but to answer my questions about the budget. And we'll get into some of the weeds of the cuts and the reaction that we've seen thus far from organizations, from groups, and from individual Nova Scotians. Appreciate everyone picking up the phone, dialing the numbers, and joining the conversation. I had expected to see more reaction to this war in Iran. Maybe over the coming days, people will get their heads wrapped around it. It's a global conflict, I think, folks. And if you read deeply into it, and I don't want to be a fear mongerer, but if you read deeply into it, we've seen escalations already into the West Bank. We've seen border skirmishes between Pakistan and Afghanistan. We've seen 7 or 8 different Arab states that have been hit by missiles as a result of this conflict, and it continues to expand. So our last caller said this is a can of worms. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back. This is the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. So glad you're able to spend some time with us. It has been a week now that since we had our provincial budget delivered by our next guest, who's going to join me on the phone here in a minute. And there has been some reaction to that budget, as you may expect. Normally, budgets are documents that lay out, they are documents that lay out the spending plan for the government. Sometimes there's numbers attached to that people don't like. Sometimes there's deficit in red ink that people don't like. But this budget, because of some of the other things that are included in it, has certainly spurred reaction from many different groups, organizations, and individuals across Nova Scotia. And I'm very pleased that our next guest was able to spend some time with us today and discuss the budget with us, and that is the Finance Minister for the province of Nova Scotia, and that's John Lohr. Minister Lohr, thanks for joining the show.
Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate you having me on the show.
I got to ask, because I've never put a budget together. I do budgeting, obviously, for the radio station and such, but not anything of this scale. When you're putting together a document like this, and you know that there are going to be some cuts, and there's going to be some job elimination and such. That has to be a tough process, isn't it?
Well, Dan, frankly, it's just a very difficult process. We're very aware of these. The cuts that we've made have real impacts on Nova Scotians. So, I mean, what we focused on, I think I can say, is we're in a tough fiscal position as a government, and we have a $1.2 billion deficit, but we're focusing on meeting the core services Nova Scotians need. So that's what we focused on.
Why are we in a tough fiscal position, Minister?
Well, we have a $1.2 billion deficit. It's I think this, if you look across the country, it's not unique. It's happening in other provinces. BC, Alberta, I think have put in budgets. I think New Brunswick will have one soon. And very similar. I mean, the reality is we're facing economic headwinds across really across the world, and we're seeing. I mean, the other reality is our province is growing, but healthcare spending is growing. So we're investing this year. We're investing more in healthcare than we've ever have, more in long-term care, more in education, more in community services. So we're focused on meeting more in housing, focused on meeting the needs of Nova Scotians, and those needs keep growing. We're working hard. So that's sort of the dilemma of the budget. We see the growth in revenue not equaling the growth in expenses. So we have this year we have a 7.7% growth in expenses and about a 5.2% growth in revenue. So one of the things we're trying to do in the budget project over the long term, that we will see a narrowing of those two numbers, and so that's part of the dilemma of budgets.
You mentioned a couple other jurisdictions with deficit spending into the billions, but Nova Scotia has just about 1 million people, and that obviously weighs bigger on each individual Nova Scotian, doesn't it, Minister?
Well, I think if you look at BC, they have like a $13.2 billion deficit for just a little under 6 million people. So their deficit per capita would be almost double ours right now. And they're doing very significant cuts as well. So I mean, we're not unique in Canada right now. This is sort of the experience, I think, of every province. And I think that as the remainder of the provinces come out with budgets in this spring budget session for most provinces, you'll see very similar circumstances. So, I mean, I will say too, Dan, that we are investing in the economy in Nova Scotia. We know that I think we're tracking a little bit different than the rest of the province in that we have a lot of economic opportunity. We have the opportunity to be an energy superpower, probably on 4, maybe 5 fronts, certainly wind, tidal, green hydrogen, natural gas. Those are opportunities we have, and we are hoping that, some, if not all of those things will materialize in the future. We're working hard to make them happen. So we know, and I believe in the province of Nova Scotia, they have a very bright future, but we have to get through this moment in time. And in the future, if we have more revenue, we'll spend more money. We've never been a government hesitating to spend money. If we have the money, we're spending it.
Minister Lohr,
I should say investing it. We're investing in Nova Scotians.
Minister Lohr, is the revenue that we're generating from taxes capping off? And the reason I asked that question, StatsCan said we saw a net loss in population in 2025. Although we've seen about 100,000 people added to the provincial rolls since 2020, but that number was in decline last year. We saw your government institute a 1% reduction in HST. We've seen the elimination of things like the bridge tolls, which I understand is about $40 million. So are we seeing that the tax revenue capping off now?
So that's an interesting question. I mean, last year we did a tax break for Nova Scotians, for the average Nova Scotian, which was about $1,000 per family, and that on average. And those are real numbers. This year we're doing the same thing, Dan, where it's about $1,400 per family on average. So, but even doing that, we're seeing our provincial tax revenues grow. Now, obviously, they wouldn't have grown as much as they would have had we not done those tax breaks. But when we do those tax breaks, we put money back in every Nova Scotian's pocket. We believe that Nova Scotians can best decide how to spend their own money. And we see the effect of that in the growth of the economy. So we know our economy is growing. The problem is the pace of growth of expenses in healthcare and housing are higher right now than the growth in revenue. So that's the challenge. So how do we deal with that? And we're spending on things Nova Scotians need. Like we're putting more money in the school food lunch program. We're putting more money in rent supplements. We're putting more money in housing. We're putting more money in home care, building schools, building seniors and long-term care facilities, building a couple big hospitals. These are all massive expenses, but they're massive investments in Nova Scotia.
Minister, you said about $1,400 into the pockets of families. Some of those families are going to be without employment because of decisions made by your government in the public service, and some that work in the nonprofit sector are facing either job losses or reductions in hours because of budget cuts to their funding. Your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, we're very aware that these decisions impact real people and real lives, and that is part of the very difficult position that we're in. As we care immensely. All of us, all our team care, and I know the opposition, they care too. So I'm not saying that every MLA cares deeply. You wouldn't put your name on a ballot if you didn't care about our province. So we understand that. So these are very difficult decisions. In terms of our own civil service, the goal is to do as much of that as possible through attrition and retirement. And, we're looking at 5% per year
over 4 years. And I think you will appreciate that we know that attrition in retirement is close to that number in any given year in any case. It won't work out perfectly that way, but we know that we'll be able to achieve some of it through attrition in retirement for sure.
Are we going to, or is there an ability for the province to get out of the red, Minister, when we have to spend $1 billion right off the top to service debt?
That is the question, and you're right. That is part of the budget dilemma, and we know that we have there's an estimated 200 years worth of natural gas onshore, on land in Nova Scotia. We have the best wind resources in the world. Offshore, we have opportunities. So I think the province's future is bright. We're a government we have tremendous opportunities in mining. There's old gold mines all over the place in the province that could be gone back through likely and just cleaned up and gotten more gold out of. There's rare earth minerals in Nova Scotia. So there's a lot of things that we haven't been doing that we can do, and we're a government committed to doing those in a responsible way, an environmentally responsible way. And I will say another thing that is happening is that the federal government is committed to defense spending, and we have a very high proportion of the defense sector of Canada right here in Nova Scotia. We know that will have an impact on our economy as well. So I'm optimistic about our future. This is right here and now. What do we have to do? We're doing that right here and now. We're doing it.
Minister Lohr, we're out of time. I appreciate yours.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the opportunity to talk.
That is the Nova Scotia Minister of Finance, John Lohr. Time to take a break. When we come back, effects of the 2026 budgets on the arts, culture, and heritage sector. A conversation with the Executive Director of Dance Nova Scotia and current President of CFNS, the Cultural Federations of Nova Scotia. We're back after the break. Welcome back as we roll along here, and we're focusing again on the provincial budget. I have to say, folks, that this one has garnered more response from the community than I have seen in a provincial budget in several years. Usually there's the response, the business leaders and such, and they look at the goods and the bads. But this one has certainly resonated very deeply outside of the regular circles, if that makes any sense, with some of the decisions that our last guest, the finance minister and the premier of Nova Scotia, have made to try and save some money and make that budget look better. And that's usually, and this time it is, involves cuts to funding, to grant programs, and let's be frank, folks, even to jobs, right? So this is certainly has garnered some response. The premier got a Bronx cheer when he stood in front of a room full of people on the weekend, and I'm going to suggest that's probably not going to be the last time that happens as we move forward. What does this mean to the arts community, right? We've talked a lot about the museums and the culture and the tourism, but what about the arts community? I'm very pleased to welcome into the studio today to give us a little bit of perspective on this. He's got lots of titles. He's the Executive Director of Dance Nova Scotia, and he's also the current President of the Cultural Federations of Nova Scotia, and that is Kenney Fitzpatrick. Kenney, how are you?
I'm great, thank you.
I'm glad you're able to spend some time with us. I know that it's been a week, it's been 7 days, and organizations are still kind of digging into this to see what it means, but at first blush, when you started to read some of the decisions that the finance minister and the premier made with regards to grants and to funding, what was your thoughts and the group that you represent?
It was a pretty heavy gut punch. You expect that each budget that comes around, there's going to be fluctuations. And if there's going to be something monumental, you usually have some advance warnings, some notice, but without any kind of consultation, anything like that, it was a big blindside. We had a 10% kind of dangled in front of us. And for most of the arts community, that was even, a challenge to kind of wrap our heads around. It's like, what does that mean for everyone? But when it came back between 20 and 40%, we quickly realized that we are losing so much, and it's just gone.
normally throughout these process, and these are the things that a lot of listeners don't understand, is that when a government's getting ready to deliver a budget that has included with it some bad news, usually there is some consultation with the affected groups and organizations. Sometimes it makes sense that those groups and organizations can come back to the government and say, okay, maybe we can find some efficiencies here, and this is where we can save some money. But this time around, from what I'm hearing from you and from others, is that there was zero consultation.
Zero. And, the amount of it, really what it equates to is that there is job loss, and there is programs and I guess what I would really, get people to try to wrap their heads around is that it's not about the fact that a child can't go to a dance class. It's about the fact that there's no more art in school. There's, challenges around the programs that rural communities rely on through the arts will be gone because there won't be any money there for them, because the same amount of people will be making programs. They'll be trying to do things, but they'll all be applying into a much smaller pot now. So there's a lot of fluctuations, and the ripple effect that goes out to not just, the average home, but to communities, to education, to health and wellness. Is pretty strong. That ripple effect is going to have a lot of repercussions.
Are we going to see different groups, different organizations that people have been in their communities for generations? Are they just going to pack up their tents and go home? Are they going to close?
Well, I think that you're going to see things close. Whether those people leave the community or not is dependent upon what the rest of their situation is. But if you can't actually host something, if you can't continue the work that you're doing in that community, you may have to move. You may have to go somewhere else. And now that community loses. And if that's in the case of something where it's an arts program that benefits mental health, that benefits, seniors who are looking for, community and ways to keep active, that is a huge loss to them, because then that also impacts the health sector again, because now some of the things that they were, utilizing through the arts is gone.
Kenney, and those that remain, will it become more expensive for people to access it?
Again, that's a really good question, but I would imagine so, because things are going to have to change. If things are changing for the arts and how things are produced, how things are presented, it may have to change in terms of just what that dollar amount looks like for the average person who's out there who want to partake in things. A lot of changes could happen that way.
Kenney, I hear from people when it comes to these things, and they're like, well, it's the arts. We don't really need the arts. We need core services. We need water infrastructure. We need roads. We don't necessarily need the arts. And you may have already touched on this a little bit already, but why are the arts important to not only to urban municipalities, but rural municipalities?
They are a huge component of who we are as a people, who we say Nova Scotian people are. When you think about a writer, and okay, well, let's just talk about it. Rachel Reed from Halifax is a writer who is now part of a monumental movement in TV with Heated Rivalry.
Yes.
If writers don't exist, if they can't be here, you don't get a Rachel Reed. Right, that's one thing if you want to talk about economics. The other part of it is, and I touched on, the seniors kind of part of it, right? They don't have access to a lot of things. Seniors are a vulnerable population, but they also want to give back to their community. So there's a whole intertwinedness there where the senior population are building communities through the arts. And that is how they're using the arts. They are, whether it's a dance class, whether it's a painting class, whether it's, a theater class or going to the theater. The senior population contributes immensely to this province, but a lot of it is through the arts. So I think that what we need to do is educate people a little bit more about how all those connections are there and how they do impact all of these different areas. Because it's easy to say that, we don't need a play. But when you think about kids in school, if you take that away from them, how do they develop? How's their development change? And it will change drastically. They find out who they are a lot of the times through the arts. We had last year an International Dance Day. I think it was just our second year doing this on Zoom. Students all across the province learned the same dance, came together, ages, P to 12, and 5,000 kids on screens meeting one another, utilizing dance to communicate with one another. That's there's transformative change there. So that is what you rob people of when you remove the arts.
It always, and I said this on the show I think last week, and when we were talking about this, it feels like the arts community and the culture community and the tourism community, all the kind of low hanging fruit, the easy decisions for government to make, because they don't think that the arts community or the arts and culture community or the tourism community carry a big stick with them and will just quietly go away. But I'm guessing that that's just not the case this time around.
Sure isn't. There is a big movement happening, and I think we saw it when our good neighbors started talking about Canada as a 51st state and things happening. Nova Scotians rallied around their own producers, rallied around this province heavily. Canadians did, as right across the country. That kind of voice is what you're going to hear here, but it's going to be that much louder because jobs are at stake, vitality is at stake.
And we've seen it before.
Yep.
When there were some big cuts to the film industry in Nova Scotia. There were thousands of people downtown.
Exactly, and I will not be surprised if come Wednesday that is the same case, as well as all around the province. Shelburne, the Valley, everywhere. There are rallies that will be happening on Wednesday.
And there's a rally downtown Wednesday. What time?
Wednesday, 12 p.m. at Province House. Come join us.
We'll look forward to it. Kenny, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is Kenney Fitzpatrick, the Executive Director of Dance Nova Scotia and the current President of the Cultural Federations of Nova Scotia. We're going to take a break for the news. The show continues on the other side. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ostrand. We are back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Another Olympic cycle is in the books, and we watched Team Canada. We cheered on Team Canada, and some of us raised questions about Team Canada's performance on the Olympics, but that wouldn't have been just me. And we'll start all over again. That's the way the cycle works, right? We go through the winters and we watch the hockey games and we watch the curling and we watch all the other Canadian athletes participate. And then once the cauldron is put out, as they say, then we start to switch gears and start looking towards the Summer Olympics. And of course, there's going to be a pretty strong contingent of Nova Scotians and Nova Scotia-trained athletes that are going to be participating in the Olympic Games when they come around. And when we talk Olympics, that means it's time for us to have a conversation with the CEO of the Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic, and that is our friend Ken Bagnell. Ken, how are you?
Very good. Very good.
So, successful Olympic Games?
So I think there's obviously different measures for that. Total medal count, we were down by 5 from the previous Olympics. Gold medal count, about the same. But I think, the addition of men's hockey created a much greater interest, not only in that event, but also in many of the other events. And so the viewership in Canada was off the charts, 90% higher than it was in Beijing. And, about a quarter of the country watching the men's final.
Got up early to watch the final, yeah.
And a huge number for the women's final as well. Right. So engagement, pretty good. And we're hoping the result of watching the Olympics will cause people, whether they're young or old, to say, maybe I should go down and take a look at that curling club and try that out myself, or go to the Oval for an extra skate a week or whatever it is. And this is the time to utilize that excitement to get more people active more often, especially kids, but people of all ages. And, outside of, very tall mountains, we have the facilities around. We have the opportunity to do that. And hopefully that's the main carryover. So with that many people engaged in watching and following the Olympics, then, we hope to see some of that. We look at some of the events where we were very good in speed skating. We won 10 medals, including 4 from Courtney Sauro from Moncton. And the most decorated Canadian athlete this time around. Hopefully people watched some of those events and saw, the success of our speed skating team. Among the best in the world for sure.
I often are asked during the Olympic Games, Ken, and I don't know if you heard it or not, but we were a week and a half in or so, and Norway was sitting at the top of the medal count, and I asked the question to my listeners. I said, "Well, how is it that a country that's 5.5 million people, has a GDP of $500 million, is able to essentially dominate the Winter Olympics in a lot of the events that we should be good at?" And the reason I say that we should be good at it, and I know that there are some elite athletes in these sports, but the cross country skiings of the world, and we've got snow and we've got lots of places to train. A lot of my listeners say, "Well, we don't have the infrastructure," and that could be, or the infrastructure is a long way away. Like I'm thinking, the ski jump is in Vancouver, and those kind of things. Is it logistics? Is it infrastructure? Is it a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I would say it's a lot cultural as well. So Norway won 25 or so medals in cross-country skiing and biathlon, which are their sports, right? We win curling. We win hockey medals. There are sports. So some of, but there's only 5 medals in curling and hockey, and there's, probably 100 in speed or in cross-country skiing and biathlon. So I think we can do very well, even in Nova Scotia, without mountains, without luge tracks, without ski jumps. I think people who are interested in excelling in sport can have that pathway at some stage if they have to relocate to where there's, like Courtney Thoreau did, where there's a speed skating short track in Montreal, then that's kind of a natural pathway. But they can start and they can get a long way while still living in this province. And we're proving that in a lot of different sports. So, Norway is a real ideal circumstance. They do very well. They care deeply. They've got a deep pool of athletes to draw on. We don't have as deep of a pool in many of the winter sports.
Success breeds success, right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is if, watching the figure skating events, a lot of the world's best are training in Canada because of the coaching infrastructure and the clubs and the success that program has had.
Yeah, interesting. The figure skating had competitors from different countries who had the same Canadian coach.
Right. They were switching jackets in between.
It's a very professional sport. Most of the winter sports aren't that way. This is their one time to shine in a public light, and then they do the World Cup circuit often in Europe, maybe one stop in Canada, one stop in the U.S. So the figure skating's fairly unique in that sense. But I'm super proud of how the Canadians have done at the games, and there was a few disappointments, but we saw some wonderful curling, and we saw one of the best hockey games ever held. 2 of them, actually, both finals were unbelievable. And while we came out at the wrong side of those, you want the best competition at the biggest moment, and Canada delivered in both the men's and the women. They were just marginally outplayed and one
game
play
went overtime, right?
Yeah. So that's what you want. We were on the wrong side of it last time, but I can tell you, everybody is already excited about, I can't wait to do that again. And maybe the Russians will be around as well to join in with the fun on the men's hockey side in 2030.
Got to ask you about the curling controversy. I know that you are heavily involved in curling in Nova Scotia, and the Mark Kennedy finger push and the reaction to that. I'm of the opinion that when you have an Olympic event where there's as much at stake as there is, you cannot rely on gentlemen's rules.
Yeah, it's true. There's no video review allowed in that circumstance, so they couldn't look at any of the evidence and utilize it. It's just not part of the curling culture. But I totally agree with you. This wasn't a one-time thing. Mark Kennedy was kind of known for that along the way, and Sweden were coming off of 3 Olympic medals, and they were totally out of it from, from the start. So I think that was a lot of frustration. We didn't handle it ideally either.
I don't think Mark did either, and I think he probably embarrassed himself by the way he reacted.
Yeah. Now, again, the plus side of that, there was so much publicity around the world about a curling controversy. Indirectly, it helps the sport. They were the best team. They won. That was fabulous. So anyway, I think when we look at all in all, we could have a little better performance, but I think people had great entertainment for a number of weeks. And I know I woke up in withdrawal last week, not waking up.
It's a good thing the Briar's on, right? So we have something to watch?
Yeah, absolutely.
Athletes competing in the Olympics, we're almost out of time. Athletes competing in the Olympics and then going on to compete in a world championship immediately after. I don't think that that's fair, not only to the athlete but to the sporting community.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of athletes who are. I met Liam Moffat at the airport, and he was flying back to Canada and saying, a couple of weeks here, and then I'm back on the World Cup tour. Not even a World Championship, just a regular World Cup stop, and so. It's a hard year for those athletes to, get back up and be able to compete at that top level after giving everything they had. But, I think there were so many big highlights in Olympics. Canadians followed, Canadians cared. And again, now we've got another stretch of time where athletes go back and train and train and train again, and then pop up all of a sudden at the Olympic Games in a couple of years. So
we only ever see the end of it, right? We only ever see the fruit of all of that labor. And we're going to take a break here, Ken. And when we come back, we're going to talk to the people that foster that fruit of that labor. We'll have a conversation with the technical director over at the Atlantic Division Canoe Kayak Canada. That's Mark James. And in the studio as well will be Casey Dalton, who's the head coach for Canoe Kayak Canada. She's looking after the next generation, can I say, of athletes that are coming up. We'll dig into the big move to bring everybody to Lake Veinotte and what we can expect maybe in 2 years' time when we go to the Summer Olympics. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrom. We're back after the break. All right, it's always my pleasure to shine a spotlight on some of the elite training and athletes that we have here in our part of the province, and we know that it's going to be a special year here in Halifax and Dartmouth over at Lake Veinotte as the team all gathers and starts to train here, and of course we've got a World Championships that are coming to our part of the world this year as well, and it's the list just goes on and on and on because it is going to be a busy place. But I'll tell you what, our next two guests probably are like me and can't wait for the ice to come off the lake. And the weather today didn't have a whole lot to help with that. But anyway, I'm very pleased to welcome into the studio the technical director of the Atlantic Division Canoe Kayak Canada. That's Mark James. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having us today.
And in the studio, it's always nice to have elite athletes in our midst, especially some that went to Lakehead University in my hometown. And that is Casey Dalton, who's the head coach with Canoe Kayak Canada, and is looking after the youth movement this time around. Casey, welcome.
Thank you.
I guess, Mark, I'll start with you. We hear a lot about Lake Veinotte. We hear a lot of good things about Lake Veinotte. It is a world-class facility, is it not?
It is. It's one of the best natural race courses in the entire world. It's kind of incredible how the global canoe kayak community refers to it. They don't say they're coming to Dartmouth. They don't say they're coming to Halifax. They're coming to Lake Veinotte.
Right. Yeah. And we're lucky just to have it right here in our backyard.
Unbelievably lucky. Some people drive by it every single day and they don't really realize just how special it is. But when we host the World, they say, this is incredible, right in your city. Are you kidding me?
Right.
Yeah.
And it's, normally you got to go somewhere remote and it's logistics and travel and everything else. And you can just walk up and walk down to the lake.
That's right. That's right.
It's pretty lucky. Casey, I mentioned you're obviously an athlete yourself, but now are on the coaching end of things and are looking after the youngsters as they make their way into becoming athletes that we're going to see on television at Olympic Games down the road.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's going to be so great. A lot of times we race internationally, so a lot of parents or people don't get to see us race. So it's going to be great to have it here in Canada and also in our hometown in Lake Veinotte.
Right.
And also, I think a lot of athletes are going to love seeing these incredible athletes compete and give them that push and that inspiration to continue in sport.
Mark, we were just talking about the Winter Olympics and how the idea is that, somebody might see something and say, hey, I want to try that, right? Mm-hmm. How strong are the grassroots for paddling and canoe and kayak here in Canada? Do you have a strong talent pool to pick from?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this past year alone, we had 50% of the junior national team was comprised of Nova Scotian athletes, and in HRM alone, we have 9 member canoe clubs that comprise about 5,000 competitive and non-competitive members. So the grassroots are pretty strong, and we fully expect every single one of them out watching on Prince Albert Road.
Right. Is it tough to stand on the sidelines and watch when you've been in the thick of battle?
Honestly, I did this for a long time as my own sport, and being on this side of it is really wonderful to get to pour my energy into trying to create opportunities for other people, and it's truly rewarding. I'm really looking forward to seeing
when the Olympics roll around, though, right? It's like,
oh yeah, a little bit. You're right.
Right. And same with you, Casey, who've paddled at the highest levels. Making the switch to coaching is a different kettle of fish, for lack of a Nova Scotia term.
Oh yeah, definitely. When you're coaching and you're giving yourself for everyone. Right. Whereas when you're an athlete, you're just focusing on yourself. I had the privilege to be on the team with Mark James as well. So Mark's has been on the Canadian team. So what's great is that in this is such a small community, and we all connect, and it's great. It's it makes lifelong friendships, and I love it.
Having everybody here, right? Everybody in one place has got to be a benefit to everybody, because you're not just this group's training in Vancouver, and this is in New Brunswick. They're all here, and everybody's kind of learning from each other.
That's right. And Casey will lead an incredible junior worlds training prep camp right before the event, and it's pretty special getting to pull all the athletes from across the country who make up Team Canada into this one space, and it's going to be the same competition venue. It's also the location of the Canoe Kayak National Training Center, right, delivered by ADCCC and Canoe Kayak Canada. So it's going to be pretty cool to have that next generation.
So it'll be hard not to see somebody out there paddling once the ice comes off.
Oh yeah, we've got everybody talking about it already. Right.
Right. Casey, how is the youth movement? You're dealing with the younger kids as they get into this. Is it? I mean, we obviously hockey is the benchmark. We have that whole setup, and everybody kind of gravitates towards hockey. And the success that the Canadian team has had on the international stage at the Olympic Games, does that drive the next generation, the grassroots?
Oh, of course, especially here. I think we actually have a lot of athletes that do hockey and they paddle as well. So they make, the transition from the winter sport to the summer sport. So it's a really great transition. And I think we have a lot of athletes coming up, which I'm really excited to see moving forward. And what's great is that everybody's going to be able to see that at this place. And we have such a great facility for the transition from junior to senior that we have the university, we have all that stuff. So already athletes are getting ready to move forward into a senior position.
Has to be huge, right? To have it all kind of one-stop shopping and just a quick bus ride from some world-class universities where younger people, obviously trying to advance their education and to train as well, right? To have it all in one place is pretty unique.
Oh yeah, for sure. I wish I had that when I was young.
Right.
I was in Thunder Bay, right? And so everything was pretty far, and by September everything froze, so you didn't get to paddle. So what's great is that they have that facility, they have the dietitians, they have the physios, they have everything here in one spot, so they're not going searching for things in different areas. And they have that support, which I know as an athlete, I didn't always have that support. So they're very lucky to have that kind of group that supports them and makes them the best that they can.
the focus on high performance athletes. We just talked about it. You see them once every 4 years, but it's a long process, right, to get somebody to be on the national team and then to represent the country at the Olympic Games, Mark.
Yeah, that's right, and we're really fortunate. Thanks to Ken's leadership with Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. I think what we have that's special here for Canoe Kayak is, we have an incredible grassroots system through all the member clubs, but we're now developing a system that can carry that athlete from their first experience stepping off of a dock to all the way to the Olympic Games. And it's a carefully crafted system, and it takes a lot of people, but we're pretty fortunate. It's
technical too, right? Like, it's not just you're jumping in your dad's canoe and practicing. There's some Canadian innovation and the whole sport is very technical.
Oh, that's right. I mean, we tell kids when they first come down to the club, get ready because you're going to spend 2 summers swimming. And that's
right. Fair enough. On the world stage, Canada obviously performs well at the Olympics and at the national championship. Is it because you have to travel so much to compete in the events? Does that? I mean, obviously, if you're in Europe, you don't have to travel as much. Does that a bit of an impediment to Canadian paddlers?
I think it is a little bit. It's probably one of the larger gaps, and it's difficult to fill. But access to international competition is definitely one of the biggest benefits that some of our European counterparts have on top of us. But I think hosting these events and will provide some of an opportunity to increase participation and access to high competition.
So the event starts in July 1st, I do believe, right?
So on June 25th, 27th, we have the Masters Canoe Sprint World Championships, and then immediately on the heels of that, July 1st to 5th, we have the Junior Under-23 World Championships. It's a really great opportunity if you want to come watch. It's a free event. You don't have to buy tickets, and you can just wander down Prince Albert Road, experience the vendors, and take in some incredible races. And if history serves us right, we'll do our best ever. Fingers crossed for sunshine.
Yeah, for sure. Casey, how's the team look?
Oh, it's looking great. I think we have a lot of athletes coming up that are going to perform very well. A bunch of them are from Nova Scotia, which is amazing. So they don't have to travel as far. Right. But I think this is going to be a great event. I think Mark and the whole team is going to do a great job at making sure that not only the athletes are prepared and having fun, the crowd, because it's going to be Canada Day.
Right.
So let's enjoy it on Canada Day.
Right? Wear the red and white and cheer on the team. Yeah. Casey Dalton, I appreciate your time today. Mark James, thanks for stopping by the studio. Again, it's a free event, folks. If you are looking for something to do at the end of June, beginning of July, Lake Veinotte is a beautiful place to be in the summertime, thanks to Ken Bagnell as well from the Canadian Sport Institute Atlantic. That's going to do it for this edition of the show, folks. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Get out there and enjoy Nova Scotia. I know it's frozen right now, but it's going to get better, I promise. Be well, everyone, and remember, be kind to one another.